From Jarrell Fowler, will Zach Ertz get dealt to the Bills? As I've mentioned many a time here on this show, I don't think Zach Ertz get traded unless he does something with his contract. I don't think NFL teams want to bring on a declining Ertz at $8.5 million. Now, I think he'll be better than what he was last year, but he was god-awful last year. Quarterback play a big factor in that from a production standpoint. So I think the Bills make a ton of sense for Ertz if he gets cut. If it's a trade, though, they got to do something about that contract. There's no way that they bring him on at $8.5 million for just one season. From Shanav, what do you think about Jamar Johnson? For Denver, he's fighting for a roster spot. He was drafted fairly late. I saw some flashes at Indiana. He did not test very well. Denver's got all these great safeties, and I am very jealous of them because they got a bunch of promising guys back there between Jackson and Justin Simmons and Johnson and even Caden Stearns as well. From Shock Universe, the Patriots signed Todd Gurley. I don't know why. Todd Gurley would be running back 3 for them. You're going to use Xavien Harris as your lead back. Harris is better than Todd Gurley right now. As much grief as Sony Michel gets, I think Michel's better than Gurley. Gurley was bad last year, guys. He could not run. He looked washed up, frankly, down the stretch. Beyond that, they've got James White in the third down role. So I don't think Todd Gurley is much of a need right now for the Patriots. From Mark Mulo here, a super chat coming in. Tom, in your honest opinion, why did the Bucs not disclose Brady's MCL injury? In general, NFL teams are very protective about their injury reports. They don't want information out there because they always try to hide it. Honestly, Brady fans are mad when I say this. It's suspicious that this information only came out in July. He was still able to go to the Super Bowl party and was fine. Was stumbling around drunk when he had a torn MCL. I think it's suspicious. I think it might be a little bit overblown, but for why the Bucs didn't disclose it is because they didn't want the opposing team to know, which is why there should be some semblance of punishment, even if it is just a fine. Gary Sanderson, Cowboys trade for Nick Boyle, also cut Anthony Rashawn Wright and presses. I think to cut Brown, it has to be Wright and a Kelvin Joseph, because they're thin if they cut Brown and it's just Wright who impresses. As for Nick Boyle, there's no need. He's a blocking tight end, and the Cowboys have 2 tight ends. Also, he's coming off injury, so I don't think it makes sense for the Cowboys or the Ravens for a Nick Boyle trade. You guys can download the Newsbreak app here by using our link. Help support the show and get essential local news sent right to your phone at chatsports.com/Newsbreak. I'll put that link for you guys, by the way, in the comment section and in the description of today's video. If you want local news with it, because if you're like me, you got a nice sports bubble, more or less, on Twitter or in your feed or wherever, and you don't really know what's going on. The Newsbreak app can help you fix that. You get politics, food, some pop culture stuff, and of course, local news updates as well. Oh, by the way, chat sports videos as well. So download the app today at chatsports.com/Newsbreak. That link, folks, once again, will be in the comment section and it'll be in the description. From Davis Painter, the future of Panthers defense, the guys like Burns and Brown and Chin and J.C. Horn. They have thrown a ton of picks at it, and I like it. I loved Brian Burns. He's a good football player. Derek Brown's a great fit. I like J.C. Horn a lot, too. I like Jeremy Chin. It's promising. It's not there yet, but the potential is absolutely there. Mohamed Torre, what should the Bears do in the 2022 NFL Draft? Chris Olave. I don't know if Olave's there in round 2 for wherever the Bills are drafting, but I do think he'd be a good fit, especially if they have to end up replacing Allen Robinson because they're stupid. Hudson is cool. Giants record/division spot. So I think it's a Cowboys-Washington football team race for number 1 because I don't think the Daniel Jones breakout happens with, Jason Garrett as the OC. Sorry, guys. So I think 3rd in the division. Over Philadelphia, I think, goes through a rebuilding year. I I think around 6 wins prior for the Giants, somewhere in that range, plus or minus a couple there. If Daniel Jones breaks out, that's a very different conversation, though. From Findecky, what do you think about Aaron Donkor of the Seahawks? So that is the edge rusher. I think he's going to play linebacker, though he's an edge in college, that the Seahawks got this year as part of the International Player Pathway Program. So Donkor is a free practice squad player for Seattle. I have not watched Donkor play. We'll know more in camp and in the preseason. I think this year, though, he is simply a practice squad guy for Seattle because he's free at that spot. That makes the most sense for them. Deal with it, 69. Nice. Will TJ Watt become the highest paid NFL player? Now, I assume you mean defense because he ain't getting $45 million a year, but he could become the highest paid defensive player. The edge rusher market, thanks to Bosa and Garrett signing lengthy deals, mind you, which does impact the average per year, very much kind of caused some chaos at the defensive end position. Like the average spot is $27 million from Bosa, $25 from Garrett, $23.5 from Khalil Mack. So if Watt signs like a 6-year deal, which he could, I do think he could exceed $27 million. If he goes a shorter deal, more like $4 million or 4-year deal, he won't get that much. The general rule of thumb I have found over the years, and it's not always accurate, every year you add to a deal, add about $2 million per year. That's how the inflation, the market structure tends to work. So if it's a 6-year deal, yeah, I think 27 is possible. If it's a 4-year deal, maybe it looks a little bit more like just right around the Khalil Mack contract instead. Now, speaking of defensive players, who do you believe is the very best defensive player in all of the NFL? Get your votes in for me right now in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. From Times Writes, if Najee Harris gets at least 150 to 1,150 yards, is it a good pick? Tough question. If it's under 1,000, I think my answer is no. Like, he should be able to get to 1,000 yards. A lot of it, though, depends on how those yards come. Like, if the offensive line is really bad, maybe you'd have regrets on that front. I don't think it's fair to determine good or bad pick based just on the yards. If Najee Harris can become a top 10-ish back in his rookie contract, then I think it's worth it from Pittsburgh's perspective. From Lil Eden, Gilmore or Xavien Howard to Tennessee, which is more likely? There is the connection kind of sort of in New England and Tennessee, so I think I lean towards Gilmore. The problem is for Tennessee, you've got 2 young corners in Christian Fulton and Caleb Farley, so if you bring on Gilmore or Howard, what are you doing with those guys? Because you've also got Jenkins. It's a little bit tough to maximize those young guys short-term and long-term if you are, in theory, bringing on Gilmore and paying him and bringing on Howard and also paying him. Folks, it is Customer Service Month here at Chat Sports, so I'm wondering, how likely are you guys to recommend Chat Sports to a friend? Now, we're aiming for 8s or higher, but let me know in the comments on a scale of 1 to 10 how likely you are to recommend. If it's an 8 or lower, let me know in the comments what we can do to get that number higher. And if it's above an 8 or a 9 or a 10, maybe go ahead and share it with a friend. From Night Lord, top 5 rookies to make an impact in fantasy this year. Okay, a fantasy football question. I just did my dynasty draft, by the way. Najee Harris, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, and then it gets a little bit murkier for me. I think I'll go Devonta Smith here. And depending on what type of league you're in, go with one of the quarterbacks. Whether that's Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson or even a Trey Lance or Justin Fields. I lean toward Lawrence myself. Those are probably the 5 I would go with apologies to other very talented first-year players too. From Brian, will Jalen Reagor break out this year? So first off, I saw a tweet, and maybe this is what it's in reference to, that said that used a 17-target sample size to show why Jalen Reagor was just as good as Justin Jefferson. It was stupid. I'm not out on Reagor, even though that pick was clearly a mistake by Philadelphia. At least based on year one, can't justify it. I do think Reagor will be better this year, but he's never going to be a number one guy, at least not in Philadelphia. That's, I think, going to end up being Devonta Smith. From Robert Bruce, hello Tom, hello Jack. Do you think 3 teams can come out of the AFC East? New England, Bills, and Dolphins. It's possible. I think it would require the 4th team to be pretty bad in the division, which could happen with New York this year. It is easier to do with the extra playoff spot. I think of the AFC teams, the AFC North probably still has the better path to getting 3 teams. But yes, it is possible for all 3 teams coming out, but I'm going to bet that no, they get 2 instead. From a child of Thanos, what is Trey Flowers' trade value? That's the Seahawks corner, by the way. I think pretty low. I'm not a big Trey Flowers guy. I think he's like a number 4 corner, and I can find number 4 corners who are a lot cheaper than he is. I hope I'm wrong on that point. I don't want to root against players. I never do, but I don't think his value is very high. I think at a day 3 pick for him, I think that's about the best you'd be able to do if you're Seattle. Speaking of trades, I want you guys right now to name a player who you want to trade away. Let me know any player for your favorite team that you just don't want to have anymore. Get your votes in for me right now in the comments section. From Todd Wise, do you think John Brown can have production similar to what Nelson Agholor had last year? I think it's possible. You know, Agholor was a really great deep threat. He and Derek Carr clicked. I'd say this, though. I don't think you want John Brown to have Nelson Agholor production if you're Las Vegas. I think you want that production to go to Bryan Edwards and, more importantly, Henry Ruggs. Those guys are the ones I think you want to have the big-time year. Why the NG11? Hello, Chat Sports. Name a Seahawks player who will get worse this year, and then a player who will be better this year. Good question. I'll start with the better side of it. I think you're looking towards a young player, someone who's primed for another step forward. There's nowhere to go but up. Darrell Taylor is the immediate name for me. He didn't even play last year, so he's cheating. If I'm not cheating, I would look at Damian Lewis. I hope he's going to be better at left guard this year. I am worried, long-term and short-term, about both tackles. Brandon Shell and Dwayne Brown are getting a little bit older. Those are 2 names that I'm just a little bit concerned about if I were Seattle. From Bro, trust me, are Sutton and Jeudy a top 10 wide receiver duo / can they become one this year? So I don't think they're top 10 quite yet. I think they're just on the outside looking in. But if I were doing, top 10 duos, 3 years from now, I would have them on that list. I think they can become one this year if Sutton stays healthy, if Jeudy stops dropping passes, and most importantly, the quarterback play takes a step forward. If you guys love the NFL like we do here at Chat Sports, hit that big red button and subscribe. We got videos every single day. Rumors, news, the mailbags like the one we're doing right now. So if you want more videos, subscribe right now. From Night Lord, what is your opinion on the Saints linebacker room? I think good enough is the phrase I go with. Demario Davis is obviously a stud, top 10 linebacker in the NFL. The number 2 guy will probably end up being Pete Warner at weak side linebacker. I am confused why they moved Zach Bond there. I think he's a strong side linebacker. Maybe they know more than me, but I think it's a good enough linebacker room in the modern day NFL. From Gary Boy 625, how many wins will the Jets have this season? Probably put it in there at 5 or 6. It's going to be a process for New York, but I think they're heading in a better direction with the new regime. A super chat just before the buzzer from All Out Broncos 1858. Are the Broncos an underrated team? I think they can be. I tend to agree with the reasoning why Denver is underrated. I don't trust the quarterback situation. Denver can make a playoff run. So from that perspective, yes, they are underrated. but I think they're a little bit more properly because of the uncertainty around the level of quarterback play they're going to get this year.